Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. It's very clear at this point that Liberal Prime Minister Mark Carney is not serious about getting a pipeline built as a part of his major projects legislation. Bill C5, which is a bill that actually the Conservatives ended up supporting the Liberals on, not because they think Bill C5 is good, but if Mark Carney's going to say he's going to get stuff done with Bill C5, Conservatives vote for it and say, okay, now get stuff done. And it didn't last so long, the impression that he was actually going to get anything substantial done on the energy front. Yeah, maybe he's going to approve a bunch of new green, renewable sorts of projects as a part of an energy corridor, but a pipeline is not in the cards, which was effectively admitted by Mark Carney at an Indigenous Peoples Convention, where he said that he is not going to amend the consultation process. Here is what Mark Carney posted after this event. He said, "Today I'm meeting with First Nations from across the country, hearing from leaders on how we can get major projects built in partnership. This is an opportunity to create more prosperity for generations. Let's get to work." And he's using the words like get major projects built in partnership, which effectively means we're not going to get anything done. This is the same sort of language you would have heard Prime Minister Justin Trudeau saying. I'm, of course, in favor of major projects. I want to get a pipeline built, but the indigenous groups don't want it to be built. The band councillors are saying no. The eco activists want another environmental review. What you do as a liberal prime minister is you constantly say yes, but then you say, but this group said no, so we can't do it. I'm so sorry. I want to do it, but they said no. Before I get into some of the other details about this, including the tape of him speaking at the convention, I just want to remind you guys, if you like the channel, make sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe if you are not yet a subscriber. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by mid-December of this year, or I owe all my friends dinner. And then also leave a comment on what you think about the situation. Really helps the channel out, and I do like to scroll through and see what people are saying. But I do like this take from JJ McCullough that I'm going to show right before I get to the actual tape of what Mark Carney said at this conference. JJ said, Prime Minister Carney's big summit with the First Nations leaders was a disaster, as all First Nations leaders' summits with the Prime Ministers generally are. As usual, the meeting is being characterized as woefully insufficient and at best just the start for a long, long process. And he has these quotes down here. Quote, I didn't have much faith in the process to begin with, and I'm leaving very concerned. Angela Levasseur, chief of this Cree Nation in Manitoba, wasn't ready to dismiss the meeting as a failure, nor praise it as a success, calling it a start. Quote, I'm not satisfied because, once again, there's a lot of unfinished business that First Nations have with Canada, she said in response to the Prime Minister's speech. Now, I'm going to cut to the Prime Minister's speech in just a second, but this is the problem with the government constantly bending over backwards, not to satisfy First Nations people, to satisfy First Nations band councils, which, if you think they actually speak on behalf of First Nations individuals, you are insane. First Nations people don't really have rights in this country as individuals. They have collective rights, which means that band councils, because they are the collective speakers on behalf of Indigenous people, can block pipelines. They can even prevent other Indigenous people from starting logging companies on their land. When I say their land in quotes, I'm meaning that specifically because oftentimes this is crown land that they do not have control over, other than if the government is unreasonably recognizing the UNDRIP or DRIPA, where it basically expands indigenous land to anything that that indigenous group says that they've ever occupied in their entire history. And so they get say over projects going through, or at least the government is going to allow the consultation, yes or no, to actually say whether that the project's going to go forward, even though they could easily just ignore them. But actual indigenous people do not have individual rights. They don't have property rights on indigenous land. It's insane. Unless they just leave and they just go and live like any other Canadian, they do not have rights on Indigenous reserve land. There are collective rights that the band councils have, and that is it. And if you want to know more about this, you guys should check out my interview I did with Francis Widowson a few days ago. He's probably one of my top videos from just a few days ago. So if you want to check that out, hour-long interview about how bad DRIPA is, UNDRIP, the Graves hoax, whatnot, and how this is all just a way of band councils fleecing taxpayers. at the expense of their own people. But now let's get into this tape with Mark Carney. Thank you for Mr. Sunshine Baby clipping this. This is a bombshell clip to come out of this meeting. Check this out.
And I think that's the first point I really want to emphasize, is that this act is only a way of starting a conversation and starting a process.
He is referring to Bill C-5 here, by the way. So the bill that may as well be called the Get Stuff Done bill, which the Conservatives rightfully call the Liberals bluff on. Hey, you have the Get Stuff Done bill now. Go get stuff done. And now he's saying, no. The bill's not the end of the conversation. It's not that I'm just going to hammer through a bunch of projects the country needs. No, don't worry. It is the start of a process. It's the start of a conversation.
And we define that process going forward. But what it could do is enable Canada to build big things that will connect and transform our national economy. Create great careers, not just jobs, but careers for the people that we serve, and provide the resources for health, for education, and social services that our people deserve. It's about giving ourselves more than any foreign government can ever take away. It's about controlling our economic destiny together.
And while he's giving all these platitudes about how we need this because we can build big things and it can get everyone careers, he and his government have confirmed that they're not going to hammer through a pipeline without going through the Indigenous consultation process, which means it's years away, which means approval on anything is going to be years. And I even suspect Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, who has said he's open to a pipeline from Alberta to the Hudson's Bay, is probably fibbing as well. All these people, again, they can say yes all day long, but then they will pass it off to Indigenous groups as the group that's going to say no, or the eco-activists are going to say no, or Premier David Eby or Francois Legault in Quebec and British Columbia. They are the ones who said no, so the project can't go forward, or we need another consultation round, or we need to do another environmental assessment. That, again, if Carney was serious about the pipeline, he would show up and he would make that part of his speech. We need a pipeline, and this is going to get done in the next couple of years, and you guys can come along for the ride and consult on it, and we can hear you out, but we need this to get done. He didn't talk about that. He undermined his own piece of legislation, again, what I colloquially call the Get Stuff Done Act. He's saying, well, the Get Stuff Done Act is not actually going to get stuff done. It's the start of the long conversation. It's the start of the process, which, again, means nothing changed. This is what the Conservatives were making a point about. I know a lot of creators are saying, well, the Conservatives voted for Bill C-5. Why are they betraying Canadians by backing the Liberal government? They're not backing them. The Liberals passed a piece of legislation that doesn't actually affect anything because Cabinet always had the power to suspend regulations for specific projects. It's their executive role to basically implement rules and regulations. So, in theory, they can just say, for this project, we're just going to say that you can fast track the environmental assessment. We're going to truncate the thing. Usually it takes 6 months. We're going to try and get it done in 2. That's something that Cabinet could always do. So Conservatives lent them the votes in order to get C-5 done. And now the Liberals own every single failure of C-5. If they don't get stuff done, that's their fault because they have the power to do it. They always did have the power to do it, but they were acting like, unless we have C-5, we can't do this. And the NDP weren't going to vote for it, and the Bloc Québécois were not going to vote for it. And so if the Conservatives didn't vote for it, what the Liberals could do was say, well, we wanted to get stuff done with our vaunted Get Stuff Done Act, but the Conservatives, the NDP, and the Bloc don't want us to get stuff done, and they voted against it. So now we have to just sit down in the dirt and, wait for death because everyone betrayed us and they won't let us, fast track projects. I thought the Conservatives wanted a pipeline and we had this bill that would get a pipeline done, and then they voted against it. But now the ball's in their court to now get the pipeline through, and he is not marketing at all. Again, he is tiptoeing around Indigenous groups, talking about how we could partner up on major projects, but don't worry, I'm not going to force you on anything. So nothing's going to happen at all. And JJ McCullough is absolutely right to be highlighting the fact that even with all of Mark Carney's groveling, the band council leaders, the chiefs, are never going to be satisfied. And the thing is, based on what I've seen from people like David Eby and Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney and so many other progressive leaders around Canada, when push comes to shove, they really do cower in front of the Aboriginal lobby. That lobby really makes them like freaked out of losing their progressive base. If they cross them, they are going to look insensitive or racist or something like that. And so the consultations will continue and no pipeline will get built. A pipeline takes a long time to get built anyways. Even if you approved it today, we're not going to still have it for a couple of years to maybe 3 or 4 years. If we start just construction right now, it takes a while. And now with consultations down on top of it, I don't even think we would see Carney approve or even break ground on a pipeline until a second term at this point. We'd be waiting until 2032 until there's a pipeline around, like a new pipeline. And anyways, that should be it for this video, guys. Yeah, nothing changes in Canada, as you can see. We're still never going to actually get anything done because that would be very un-Canadian of us. Consultations and listening to radical progressive activists, that's what Canada's all about. But anyways, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all that great stuff, and I will see you guys all later.